All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's stream. This is going to be a one-on-one today with Medio. I'm going to bring in here in a second. How I actually got to this stream, or how we got here, is I was using for a long time a dashboard that he co-created, where there are a lot of skills for scientists, for engineers listed. And I told my coaching students back in the day a lot about this and showed them that. And I think I linked this a few times. So this is a cool thing, Medio, and I'm going to show it to you. So let me bring in Medio here. Hi, Medio.
Hello there. I'm
Hi.
super pleased to finally get to chat with you after seeing a lot of your content online. Yeah, when I started also my content journey, you were also it went pretty fast also for you. I think when I started like a year and a half, I think you were starting to committing quite full time, right?
Yeah. I've been like for as long as my oldest daughter, like 6 years. I think I'm on LinkedIn and YouTube. I don't know, 5 or 4 years. So yeah, cool. Well, I actually, for me, is I haven't actually seen a lot from you. And I was really happy when I shared something about the skills radar, and you said like, "Hey, that's mine," because I never knew who created this, and on the side you actually don't see that as well. It's like
Yeah.
that's something you you guys need to work on.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I can get to the story of how it started, but it's clear it was more a group project. But it's really funny because when I look at your post, I was like, oh, those color, it remind me that project I did a while ago. And
Yeah,
then when I dig into it, I was like, wait a minute, this is actually a screenshot from that project. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So let's quickly let me say two words for the audience. Everybody, if you have questions, put the questions for Medio in the or for me in the chat. If you're on YouTube, if you're on LinkedIn, and now also on Twitch. I actually haven't looked if Twitch is working. Maybe. So if you're on Twitch and seeing this, put a comment in the chat. Um, Medio is a what is it? Medio staff data engineer, right?
Yeah.
So somebody with a lot of experience, and I'd love to speak with you about this. And I think you can also help a lot of people here.
Yeah.
Hi, man. And yeah, should we show the readout first, Mio?
Yeah.
All
Go
right,
ahead. Yeah.
let me bring it up here. So, so what I when I started or when I found this, it was like there weren't 160,000 job index
Mm.
here. It was, I don't know, it was less, and it was, how was that? You create this 20. I found this somewhere 2021.
Yeah,
I
but so
think.
I think yeah the date is about correct, but we had some bumps in the scrapper, and actually it is on hold since August. I need to get on that.
Okay.
uh, I didn't put that much monitoring, and it was kind of dying, but like because I noticed that you were using it, I'm like, okay, I need to do a bit of maintenance of that, you know. Like
Yes.
some projects you like I have some alarm and some alert data check, but I don't look at them because I felt like nobody's looking at the project. So yeah, I should definitely fix that. But basically we started scrapping in I think in 2020, end of 2020.
Mm.
And yeah, and the data was scraping, I think, every week up till last August, basically. So that's
Okay.
like, yeah, that's why there is quite some job ads there.
Okay. So you should look into that, because I really like this. So if you for everybody who doesn't know this, on YouTube I put the link into the description about this. Um, I don't know. Can you also post it in the chat, maybe? Because I somehow I can't post it in the chat
Yeah.
always from
Let
StreamYard here. I don't know. But
I can.
so let me tell you why I like this. The cool thing with this is you can select two job types, and there are a lot of jobs in there. Network engineer, machine learning engineer, 4,000 jobs for ML engineer, right? DevOps, platform engineers, data engineer, 24,000 jobs. And where's the data scientist? I'm up blind here, 19,600 for data scientists. So you can just say, okay, as data scientist, let's mark this, and then look at the actual skills. Let's look at it for a let's just keep it for everyone, and in the region North America only, right? And then you see the programming languages, you see the platform providers that are important, and you see tags of things that actually people need to, yeah,
Yeah.
or
So
should know,
yeah.
right?
So I can give a bit of information on like how we get the skills. It's
Yeah.
really like a list that we pull out from a different space. So it's a static list, and then we basically do a simple frequency tokenizer on the text and count the occurrence per job ads. So one big challenge is like to get those technical skills relevant, because the technical skills can go from a Python library to a framework, right? And so it's really large in terms of scope to be able to list them all, right?
Mm.
And so I think like that's the first challenge we had. That's why we put like the most common one in data. But I think what works really well, at least, which tell you how simple you can do some projects sometimes, is the programming language and the cloud provider. I think what was really interesting for us, at least for me, is that you can see that the dominance of cloud provider is really depending on the region.
Mm.
Of
Let me
course, yeah,
change this here. So we are right. Let's go to data engineer, because like other data engineers.
yeah,
So now we're in North America. It's 60
yeah,
something percent AWS and 23 Azure and 14 GCP. So let's go to Europe.
yeah, yeah.
Let's go to Europe. No, only Europe. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So a
I
lot
know
more
it.
Azure.
And I mean, there's a lot more Azure, and yeah, and the reason is more historical. It's the same for the programming language. You can see that for some region in the world, because they had tech for quite a while, or programming, like programmers for quite a while, they built their legacy system on standard backend like Java, right?
Mm,
And some other region, I don't know, like Africa maybe, they jump certain technology. So they may have less traditional backend than other region.
mm,
A bit like, some place in Africa, they skipped the landline internet. They went directly to 4G, right? And that's
yeah.
that's the same thing as like it's obvious when you think about it. Um, but it's really interesting to know, because when we advertise for people to get into the domain, this is what you need to know in terms of skill set. It's actually sometimes really depending on the type of company you're reaching out, and the landscapes around you.
Yeah, it's true. It's one example. So this is just for regions, right?
Yeah,
So one example was I had a student where we let me quickly bring this up in a second again. I had a student from, was it Finland? No, it was one of the Nordic countries. Uh, no, Norway, Norway, and he said, like, yes, for instance, here in the, as we see in AWS is the most,
yeah.
but in Norway and in that where he was, so in Norway and the companies that he was looking at, it was almost all Azure.
Mhm.
So it's very, it depends a lot where you are. That's what you're saying, and that's
Yeah,
also
yeah,
what I
yeah,
have seen.
yeah.
It's really amazing.
And I think, like, for example, also, I know, based on my network and company of work, that um, GCP has a strong foundation in the Nordics, so Sweden and so on.
Mhm.
So you can see a lot more GCP around there. Of course, here it's just the whole Europe region, but I guess also that's
Yeah.
why GCP has a bit more bump. I guess here. Yeah,
17.4. How's it in North America here?
yeah, I don't remember. Yeah,
14. Huh?
um, but
Okay.
yeah,
Almost not
yeah,
existing
you can
actually.
literally see where Microsoft put their, their long time bets in
Uh,
some place. Because I think, like, we know that like all the corporate and all the old companies before, like companies that are older than 20 years, right? They all on Microsoft and Azure because it was just an extension of contract, right? If you already have the mails suite on Microsoft and you want to go to the cloud, it's just an extension. But
yeah.
I think at GCP betting a lot of on the startups, so that's why they're not really into I think that market yet
Yeah,
really.
I see this exactly the same way. I can see this on my own company, right? So when I was at Bosch and so on, they all have Microsoft stuff, and it's easy to walk into the Microsoft
Yeah,
ecosystem or cloud ecosystem. If you're a startup and you're starting with, okay, what do you have? You have an email address and then a domain. Okay, you're going to get yourself a Gmail email address. Then you're going to get yourself the how's it called, workspace work.
yeah, yeah.
You know
Google,
what I mean?
yeah,
So you're already there. You have your text editing and so on, all in the Google Cloud. So the step to GCP is very easy,
yeah,
especially if you want to analyze files that are laying in Drive.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that's how I see it.
And I think also a lot of company underestimate like the access management at scale. Like
Mm,
if you need to have an LDAP between system and start to have like kind of group to mix everything, it start to be a bit more harder than just natively within your ecosystem where you have those access management. Would it be Azure or Microsoft or
yeah,
Google in
that's
GCP?
that's true. Here is a question. Hi, Andres and Mehdi. Quick question. Do you feel the cloud providers ratio will change in the future in a couple of years, as I've seen companies and institutions move to GCP and given the advancements Google is making in the cloud platform? What's your thoughts on this?
I think it's really hard because I've seen. So I have both experience on AWS and GCP in production at scale. I don't have like anything in on Azure. I just follow from really far. But I hear a lot of good stuff happening on Azure. I think like an example is that coming back to data engineering, Databricks betting, a lot with Azure and making all the ecosystem and the integration working pretty well compared to the
Mm,
other that came really late in the game. Um, and so it's really difficult to see. I see all the company, having healthy competition because when a cloud service is getting out on like AWS, you can be sure that GCP is gonna do the same, or
yeah,
yeah, or the other way
it's,
around.
it's
Um,
literally the same thing.
so so I think what I see is that definitely GCP for me when I like this question coming always, what is the best cloud provider, right? For me, it's like GCP is kind of a high level and simple usage, a bit like Apple,
Mm,
and AWS you get Android with all the pro and the cons. So you get like more technical and like it's more, you have more flexibility on certain things, I believe, but they're designed differently, so they're targeting different kind of user, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, I don't see one or the other taking over. What I could see maybe is multi-cloud happening a bit more, like BigQuery going omni. So now you can have AWS people having a BigQuery setup on
mm,
AWS. So and why not, if there is a strong product from AWS and make it available to be deployed? Maybe that could happen. Um, yeah, and I think Azure is like still a market, like an invisible market. It's really big. Like if you count on the Microsoft legacy,
Hmm.
um, and so I don't know how those company will evolve in the future if they gonna move on. Do you have any thoughts on this? Like from the corporate world, if you could see like a Bosch company like moving to GCP or AWS at some point?
So what I see is that these larger companies, they give you a lot of options. It's usually they don't limit you to, okay, we're just going to do Azure in our whole 500,000 people company. It's like you can these projects have the option to go on GCP, on Azure, or on AWS. But one interesting thing, and that's why I think GCP sometimes, or at least back in the day, like 3 4 years ago, didn't even try to get into the bigger companies, was I was visiting Hannover Messe in Hanover, one of
Yeah.
the largest industrial fairs in Germany, or no,
Mm,
around I don't know,
yeah.
is it around the world? I think so, right? So it's a huge fair, and AWS had a huge booth with really big, with a lot of people there and showcasing everything. Azure had a large thing, and Google, they had with their cloud, they had like this. It's like my office, like just two people there, and it's like whoever, whatever. We don't give 2 cents about the industries. Like, that was something interesting to see. I don't know if it has changed, but that was something where we're like, okay, that these are not the clients they're looking for.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
You
probably. I
you
think there is um, a strategy behind the scene that we don't see, and probably that drives some of the the product design and the products um, thing on some stuff that they want to bet. Because like today on data, GCP is pretty strong, right? They
Mm.
start to have. I think they really beat an AWS compare like when they invest into Redshifts for AWS, and maybe they want to bet that more, right? And maybe it's gonna be known more as a data cloud, and AWS for something else. We don't know. It's
Mm.
it's
Mm.
it's it's really hard.
What you can see, and I read this all the time, is the strong machine learning offering from GCP, right? So
Yeah,
they're pushing in there. They're a lot better than AWS, from the ease of use and from the features. It fits to their other business model, to the main business model of search and like analyzing data, right? So that's obvious.
yeah. I think it, like the story of AWS started like this, right? It's like we do it for our own business, right?
Yeah,
Amazon. So why can't we just like sell what we do in-house for others, right? Managing
yeah,
servers. And I think GCP is also basically just adopting this strategy for their product, which makes sense then that on certain things they are better than an e-commerce because there is things that an e-commerce doesn't need, right?
yeah,
For that.
yeah. I think AWS goes harder at this, pushing it more out to the customers, also helping customers a lot. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I have a project. Yeah, we are going to get two people on the job, or three, and they're going to advise you and make you a design how to set everything up so that you come into our ecosystem and pay us the money. So yeah, let's see. There's another question here. What was that? Oh man, long questions today. I have this dilemma of the cloud platform to settle in with, and for my career progression, I already have a sound working knowledge and experience with Power BI. However, I left for Google and GCP. Azure seems to the most reasonable platform for my data engineering career progression. What do you advise?
Again, it's like where do you want to work? That's like the initial question of the talk, right? Is that we realize that depending on the type of company you're applying, um, because at the end,
Mm,
like all the cloud provider are nice to work. There is not like you have like preference, but it's not like there is one horrible. and once
Yeah.
you learn one, it's pretty easy to go to another one. um,
Yeah. That's true.
and so, like, just look at what kind of company you want to reach out and check their job offers and see uh, what kind of cloud provider they request.
Yeah.
If they request the three of them, they're really like, their expectation is pretty low on your cloud skills, which is a shame. So I wouldn't apply there anyway.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's as you mentioned, is it's a big corporate company, and then they have anyway the three cloud provider. It's depending on the department, or what's your preference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean,
Azure is a great pick if you're already comfortable with Power BI. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, you also in larger companies you can have like internal startups where they're
yeah,
starting a new project. They haven't fixed in on one cloud in particular. So yeah, but I would go further, not just look at one at that one company, or like I think you were already going that way. Like if you one example that I always told my students is if you want to get into banking, then I would
yeah,
look into all big banks in like in Germany, look into the job descriptions and what you find there, and try to find a pattern of what do they require, not just the cloud platform but also other things, and then you're going to find a way, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but as you said, it's like if you're 100% sure if you know GCP, you can make it in Azure or in
I, thi-
AWS. It's
I think what maybe an advice I would give people at, they often, when they jump for the first time on a cloud provider, they don't try to learn like what is component built from, and what is like its purpose. Why does this cloud provider launch this service?
mm,
And if you ask like just those simple questions, and you understand, oh, okay, AWS Glue is a Hive metastore. What is a Hive metastore? Why did we build that? And then all the pieces get connected together. Because when you go to another cloud provider, it's just another fancy name. And that's the danger, is that cloud
mm,
provider likes fancy name, and then you get lost on all those names. But at the end, behind the scene is a technology well known, or a fork of it, a version of it, right? You can like
that's true.
roughly say, okay, this is what it does. And there is also multiple cheat sheet online, right, that compare the equivalent on the different things. But I think like, for me, like if you ask me what is Athena, it's a SQL engine which built initially like from Presto. What is Presto? You can understand where it's come from. And then if I go to Azure, I'm gonna just look what's their SQL engine, right? Based
Yeah.
that query object store.
You
And I
could
don't
you
know the
could
name. Yeah.
no, I don't know either. But you could just go. One thing that I did a lot is go into Google, like, and
Yeah.
as you said, Presto, so I would go Presto Azure alternative, and then
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
will spit it out. Okay, this is I don't know. Uh, I'm
Or
not really.
verses, like, that's worked pretty well
Yeah,
also
yeah,
on
yeah,
Google.
exactly. Or
If you do
versus.
verses, you can see the alternative directly popping up.
Exactly. Yeah. So back to the radar. That's what I also like about this, right? So you can have an overview, as you said, cloud providers. You can have an overview of cloud programming languages. You can play around and see, like, did this change this year compared to last year?
Yeah.
You can look at seniority, which, well, in this a lot of is not defined, but uh, data engineer. Oh
Yeah,
no, this is
I
actually.
think the trends, as you mentioned, this is something I would like to do, and a bit more work on that. Like, what is the top trends
Yeah,
last year and how it goes, because it's difficult to see it on those specific graph. But
you need to play around.
yeah,
Yeah. But the interesting part is SQL is always it's always on top. I think you didn't you write this somewhere on a blog post lately,
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
It's no, it was quite a while, yeah. But it's I did this blog post. Let me pick it up. But yeah, SQL is always there. What I found really interesting, I was not aware, is that for data engineer, the programming language, there is still a strong need of Java in general, which makes sense because streaming engine, like they mostly like Flink, it's it's mostly built initially from Java words. Uh, but it's something we tend to forget with everything like DBT and so on, which like more SQL and Python, that there
Mm,
is still a really big word um, built on Java for a data engineer.
yeah. But nevertheless, Python, I mean, it turned a lot in the past years. That Python really got big in this.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's that in Europe? 45% is Python. The interesting part here for me is Scala. That Scala is that high. That's isn't that just Databricks? I mean, just Spark.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like,
I think it's that, and I think some company did a decision back then to build their microservice and some backend in Scala, right? Because they were doing heavy, data pipeline processing in Spark Scala, and
mm,
then they also invested into some microservice. And sometimes a role today would say you do a bit of both. Uh, but yeah, I'm surprised too because I think I think also maybe that what this can tell us is that people tend to put too much in the job description.
that
So
could also be.
yeah, because like if I actually get the statistic from Databricks itself, and they say that most of the API call today to Spark is happening to Python than SQL, or is it the other way around? But Scala is third. So
Mm,
if you think about it, that we say, okay, it's only Databricks, but within Databricks anyway, it's already the third place. Yeah, I'm suspecting it's more like people just throwing keywords into job offer. Not
yeah.
sure.
Let's just try something. January. I want to see if this changes this year. So we were at 17.9. Not really. So Scala is still 16.6 here. Nah. Yeah. So that's something that I actually don't like. Is a lot of people put too much stuff in their job description. Right. It's like I was talking with someone a few weeks back. Like she said, there was a job description and they had AWS, they had GCP in it,
Yeah.
and when she got to the interview phase and they were talking about it, they didn't even had plans to go into GCP. Like they just added the GCP stuff, and
Yeah.
nobody really wanted to go there. So what? Why?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
get
And
it.
I think the danger of that is that people also, get confused and maybe depressed about, oh no, I cannot apply to this role, right?
Mm,
Because I don't have knowledge. Whereas if they expect like actually, they have nothing over there, then I mean it's fine. It's really depending on your expectation. But this is was one of the reason why I wanted to build the tech skills radar is that I mean I think there is a lot of stuff to do around this. I was wondering if we could detect like the false data engineer offer. Like if you train like based on the data I have, on the but I need to have like manual checkup like what's a good data science
mm,
job offer. But I'm sure we could flag a lot of like data engineer, this is not a data engineer job offer, it's more like more with a color polygon color base like it's it's for
well, makes
towards
sense.
data was and like you could like I'm surprised why LinkedIn is not doing it already because they have the skills itself as a specific field. So they could alert people to say, "Hey, are you sure you're looking for a plumber?"
Mm.
But because I think like when I get like sometimes interviews where I realize they're not looking for a data engineer, they're more looking for a backend developer or a data
Mm,
analyst. Um, Often the case is just that their data maturity is pretty low, and so they are someone did not their job really well, and the HR is just with the basic knowledge and see this is just what I got.
mm.
So I think yeah, at least HR recruiters could be helped in that way to see
Yes.
like how to evaluate their job offer and their title to not confuse people.
Yeah, I think that's the more the job of the companies than on LinkedIn. Because I mean, is it in LinkedIn's interest to do that? I don't know if they want to do that. But
I mean, if you apply for a job offer and you you know it's not what you expected, I
okay,
think indirectly you could say this website is a scam. We all know it's not the case, right? Um, but you get the idea. It's like curating the offer so that it match the best your profile. I think it makes sense.
yeah. Gregory here says that's why they say apply even if you're not 100% match.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. I have a couple of posts about that this topic. Yeah, I feel like this is how you grow. Basically, you apply for something you're not really ready, uh, and you try to pass the interview. That's the best way to evaluate yourself. Like if you
Mm,
want to move from major to senior or senior to staff, it's the best way to grow is to apply to job you're not 100% ready.
mm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you said it before earlier. Like, don't get demotivated if they put so much also in the job description, right?
Yeah, it's a department but now they put it. It's crazy because I guess like so I've been in data for 8 years now, and I guess you have seen the trends also, right? It's like for me when I start developing Spark, it's like was 1.3, and I did a bit of my produce before on premise, so I looked like an alien if I did like 10 20 line of codes of my produce because there was nobody, and it was really hard to practice by yourself because
Yeah,
cloud
it's true.
provider were not there, so you needed to have an entire army and budget just to try it out and learn on the job on on-premise cluster, right? And so back then the requirement were super low, super easy, right? It's not like can you develop on on-premise distributed system? Yeah, fine, we hire you. It's like, and now the other, it's more a commodity to learn it. So I guess that's why the expectation is higher. But then yeah, you put like so much things that it's not needed at the end.
Mm, yeah. There's a question. Let's that this is right on our alley. So, having in mind my short XP, couple of months professional data engineering team, what is your advice for building proper and adequate skills? I mean, there are SQL, clouds, Python, Shell, streaming platforms. When do the picture become clear? Thanks.
It never gets like no, I don't want to make depressing people, but um, it never gets. You get basically just to with the experience to you know what you don't know a bit more clear. There is this area as you mentioned, like where the picture get clear unclear, and you don't master them. You just know that you don't know them and they
Mm,
exist, right? And I think one advice would be just pick up what it's needed to do for your job, right, and for your project, and don't go crazy. Like for me, I've been doing actually streaming pipeline. I did it for a year or two, like 3 years ago. I don't do it like a lot now, so I'm like pretty rusted on those things. But you see, it comes and goes, and depending on the project. Um,
mm,
and so I think it's mostly just focusing on what you need for your project and saying no to certain things that there is limited things that can stick into your brain. Basically, you have to pick some things.
yeah. If you let's say so, if you would be new to this, let's say you start all over again right now, right? So you have a bit of experience. You can code. You might have done a bit work with databases. So what would be your advice to Peter here? Um, what would you look into specifically into, let's say, areas or tools?
Yeah, can you put it back the question? So I see like the skills he was mentioning: SQL, cloud, Python, shell, streaming platform. Uh, so I think like SQL and Python, you can already go pretty far. And if you have cloud skills, I think usually what I see those people getting into the main are missing is software engineering basics, because they come usually either from non-tech or other backgrounds, or from a business point of view, data analyst background. And so what I mean by that is everything related to CI/CD, versioning, testing, and versioning is not just understanding Git. It's like, how do you branch? How do you do a release management? Life cycle of a package, all those things. And testing is the same. It's not just do an unit test. It's integration test and system test.
Hmm.
CI/CD is like, what do you automate within your CI? What kind of tests do you do? Do you do automate the deployment? So there is multiple strategy over there. There is not just one answer for some of them, but being aware and master them, that's what will get you to the next level, because then you can build systems that are like robust enough. It's more than just SQL and Python and running a job. You know how to design system and project that will last, uh, you know, as long as it's needed. So I think, yeah, that would be my key thing to wrap up, like testing, CI, and versioning, like going into the
Cool.
basic of those.
Nice. I hope this helped, Peter. So, unfortunately, we only have 10 more minutes. As I said when we talked before, I started the live stream because I need to uh, take care of the kid. And I want to, like, Media, we were talking about what's next for you, what you want to get into
Yeah,
next. Let's quickly talk about that, because I think that's important, and that's also why I want to tell everybody who's watching here that they should follow you as well on LinkedIn, and where's you, on Medium, and
yeah. YouTube. I mean, YouTube will be my go-to now. I mean, I'm quite active, of course, on LinkedIn, but
yeah.
Media Data TV, yeah, definitely. Um, and yeah, I think for me, like that, like I'll continue to put content around data engineering specifically, because this is where I have a lot of background. But I want to go a bit more meta and help people to actually get started on technical content. I think for me, it was a huge boost on my career. I think it changed your career completely, right? um, and I think people misunderstand like the term of like putting content, like they see YouTube and the teenagers saying they want to be a YouTuber full time, but
Mhm.
it's not about that. It's about building your soft skills, writing, putting your thoughts on paper, getting to know other peers, feedback on your work. So there is a lot of added value that will create opportunities among time. And you don't need to go full time, and you don't need to go crazy. You just need to find your own voice and your own rhythm. But it has this really big impact on your personal career, and yeah, and opportunity that it can generate. That's
S- So the goal, so maybe you can explain it also a bit. Like, are you going to create tutorials, or are you going to help people understand how to actually go that route and how to teach what they know?
Yeah, that's basically that. Like how
Okay.
to find their own voice
Okay.
and their own content. Of course, I'm gonna share all the things I've been learning this past year and a half on writing, YouTube. Um, but I think the goal is that everybody should find their own voice. If you're not into YouTube, it's fine. If you don't want to show your face on YouTube, it's also fine. There is great, YouTube channel that doesn't show their face, and people are not aware of that or all these possibilities.
Yeah.
Um, and they're scared to just make the first step, and it's really scary. But believe me, it's really about building like your personal brand, your tech personal brand, and that's how you will stand out against the competition. That's like how people will recognize you, and the opportunities will show by themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there are a lot of formats you can do on LinkedIn or on YouTube. I mean, or also if you want to go on in written content and start a, I don't know, right now I was just talking with someone today about Substack. I created a Substack, or like teach people what you know, and automatically they're going to come to you and going to ask you for help, and you can position yourself as an let's call it expert, right?
But you don't need to be an expert, right? Because I've
Yeah.
seen like students doing a really great job of just say, "Hey, I learned pandas." Like it's really basic, right? But for me, it's actually boring to teach because I've been no, but so I'm happy there is like less junior, more junior people that are willing to put like content, like a great blog post about
Yeah.
pandas and what they suffer, and they're the best because they are in the best position. They're just learning it, right?
Mm.
Um, so, and that's why I feel people say, "Oh, I think it's not enough good." You always have to something to share, and it can also be just as a document, a process, documenting your process. And if you're wrong, it's fine. People will correct you and help you through. I mean, usually the
Yeah.
community is sometimes a bit toxic, sometimes not, but
Mm.
all experience I had generally was really nice people just willing to help.
It's all I would say, or I can say this the same that there are not really a lot of haters in our space. Like, yes, you get, if you talk and something isn't right, then they're going to tell you. But it's not like I'm doing a YouTube video and there are 10 haters that hate the video, right? And then write you a comment like you idiot, and so on. So I think our space is, it's a smaller space, but it's a good space to be in, and people love to help and get help. Yeah. So that's your next step, going with
Yeah.
going with
So,
that,
so
helping
I'll
people
keep
to.
doing the content, but this is like a major point, and the goal is basically to have an on-demand course with kind of a cohort where people can do peer review between each other. I'm still figuring out that, but that will be one thing. And the other thing I've been thinking is doing in-person conference coverage. I did for the DBT. I
Cool.
went like with a mic and interviewing people. I found it really fun. So yeah, that's something I would like. And then I need to code. So project like Data Skill Shredder. I'm a builder, so I cannot
Yeah.
just yeah create
Yeah,
content.
that's
I need to code at a certain point of the week. Yeah.
that's something that I struggle a lot with. Like, because a big part of running my academy is actually doing media work, doing social media, doing blog posts and everything. And that gets me away from the coding part, from the developing new courses part, which I love to do. And that's, for me, that's a challenge. And so I can understand that you say.
Yeah, it's like finding the balance. I guess it's pretty hard, right? Especially when you start to grow, and you said like you need to have like kind of a social media manager for you.
Yeah. Yeah,
But yeah.
I have two people who help me right now.
Whoa.
So
Okay.
it's not I couldn't do it alone. So
Okay.
but the point with doing a cohort thing, I would highly advise that you start with that,
Yeah.
because I also started my academy with coaching, but I called it coaching, where I brought in people on a every month. And I did it one by with in the beginning it was a one-on-one thing, then I did larger groups, and before I quit coaching, I did it with, again, with one-on-one, because I want to try stuff out and focus a lot more on the individual. But with that, you actually know what do people need, because
Yeah.
you have in your mind, like when I started, I I roughly knew what people need to learn and where they might get stuck and need help. But doing it for half a year or something at least, so you have a few people in the cohorts, and you get, because you're going to get questions all the time,
Yeah.
and this way you can build something that doesn't need to you to answer the same questions 1,000 times, and helps a lot, people a lot. That's
No, but
Mm,
that's a really good tip. Yeah, I mean, at least I would love people to. I mean, we always say like studying together, get more engagement.
mm,
But for content, I think there is a lot of opportunity for people to meet each other as a reviewer, right? And that's
yeah,
how I get my first contact online. Is that I asked like, can you review that blog post? And yes, sure. It takes 5-10 minutes, and then you have an opinion of someone else that bring a lot to your content. So I think finding those people that support and that you can grow with also alongside,
yeah.
that's really important.
Just one sec, maybe. I need to quickly. I'm back in a sec.
Yeah. I think you need to unmute.
Ah, shit. I'm muted.
No
Ah,
worries.
um. Thanks, Gregory. Um. So we need to stop here, unfortunately, and I just needed to quickly have a word with my wife before she leaves. Um. It feels like we need to chat again, Medio. So
No
let's
worries.
let's let's pick this up again.
Yeah,
Thanks
but
for
let's
being
let's
here.
let's let's do it next somewhere next year when I have some stuff new with the course, right? I think
Whenever
that
you want.
was that's yours. Cool. It was a
Get in
pleasure to
touch.
finally meet you.
Everybody follow Medio here. Find him on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Medium, and yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
Medio.
that's
Have a
about
good
it.
one. Have a good one,
Have a good
everybody.
one. See
Bye
you.
bye.